What's up, everybody? We got 10 minutes. Jimmy and Mark here to talk about, well, actually, we're going to talk about my own firearm this time.
Woo.
We've talked about Rick's 270. We've talked about your 22. Now we're going to talk about my first AR-15.
Now, this isn't your first firearm, Jim.
No, I had a couple other ones. I got a Mossberg 500. I had a Henry Repeating Arms 22 long rifle lever action, and I had a Glock 22 that I procured out of the guy's Honda Civic in a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, most of your firearms involve some sort of, I'd say, interesting, like you said, procurement story. Are we ever going to dive into those at all?
Maybe. I don't know if we should or not. The statute of limitations, I think, in Wisconsin is like 5 or 6 years, so give me until I'm like 26 or 27.
Well, and I don't think anything was actually illegal.
No, it wasn't. That's the thing, is it wasn't illegal, but it just sounds weird.
It just seems weird, yeah.
So anyway, but this was totally legit. My brother and I actually built this rifle. It's kind of a Franken gun. For those of you watching on YouTube, you know, it's all one color for the most part, all flat dark earth. That was big at the time of me building this. But it's all Franken parts and whatnot. It's not a factory gun, but we built it together in his basement. He kind of has a shop down there that he's cobbled together out of the area, I think, underneath his staircase in his house. And we did this, I think, when I was 19 or 20. And then I've kind of just had it ever since and have shot it a lot. It's very, very dirty right now. Pete and Adrian would be upset with me if you've listened to the firearm maintenance podcast. Now, I have maintained it-ish. It's extraordinarily dirty right now, but...
well, that's one thing I was actually going to compliment you on, though. This gun has seen some use, and it's very apparent. I wouldn't say it's overly apparent. Have you been... Getting back to the maintenance thing, have you been applying lube at all?
I need to. It's drier than the Sahara right now.
Oh, she's due then. That's all right.
But when I look at this gun, I actually pulled it out. I haven't shot it in a long time because I feel like I've been shooting a lot more like bolt action stuff and lately. But I pulled this thing out, and of course, as I mentioned, it is dirty as can be. But I looked at all these parts on here, and it's funny to think about this because I remember my brother Sam. My brother Dave is the one I built this with. My brother Sam, who's his twin and another man of mystery. He had an AR-15. He was like the first person in our family to get an AR-15, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was building this rifle, and I went into his basement safe one time to look at his AR-15 that he got, his first one, I remember looking at that and being like, all the parts on there are so outdated. They were all really big, bulky, heavy. They didn't look like the fit and finish from the time that he had gotten it was that good. He had a suppressor on it. It was like one of the first commercially available suppressors, I feel like. Probably not one of the first. I don't know. It was a really old one.
I remember when he got that. It's like almost like welded aluminum. You can like see like the
you can see the spot welds.
Yeah.
You can see them all the way down the suppressor. I was like laughing.
Yeah.
And now I look at this thing, and all the parts on here are legit. They're all really good and nice, but I'm giggling at the fact that like this minimalist stock that you see all over Instagram now. When I got this, I had to like track it down because it was barely even released yet.
Right.
And, you know, I did the whole paracord thing myself. I learned how to like burn all the paracord on and weave it. Oh gosh, what else? It was like ambi charging handles and ambi safeties, and ambi is a Santan lower on here with that full, you know, ambi everything. That was like huge. I remember this like Battle Arms development safety with the ambi selectors was like, it was like freaking chrome wheels or something practically for your AR.
It might as well spin.
It might as well. Santan didn't even make an upper at that time, so I just have like my brother has a spare upper laying around, so we just used that. We Cerakoted it all flat dark earth because that was cool at the time. Of course, now it's gone on to, it was OD green for a bit, and now it's like wolf gray, and now it's just kind of whatever you can imagine.
Which is interesting when you bring that up. It's interesting that like there's a fashion element to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, that was so FDE 5 years ago. Like,
oh, totally. This whole thing, everything is all FDE air thing. This was also at the time when like 13-inch, or I think this might even be a 15-inch handguards. It was like that was operated. That was like cool. So this thing at the time was a sweet AR. This was all like new parts and everything. I kind of went full on. I got a silencer cope on the end of it where it's like, again, with that 15-inch handguard, it runs right up to the end of the suppressor, and I put this, oh, what is it? Coltac cover on it that kind of matches the color scheme a little bit. Anyway, I felt pretty cool with this thing. I shot it quite a bit. I put a Razor 1-6 on it. I got a used one from someone around here and was like just stoked on this thing. The Geisley mounts were brand new.
I was gonna say that was pretty trick.
That was So,
I mean, that's actually still a really nice mount. But.
Oh, it is. All this stuff still works excellent, but it's just funny to like look at this stuff now and be like, oh, they don't even make that anymore. Or some of the stuff they still make, it's like, well, everybody knows about it now. Everybody has it.
Sure.
But I was also thinking about that too with AR-15s. Like, what's going to be, is the AR-15 always going to be the thing, the ubiquitous choice of Americans for their modern sporting rifle? Because look at it this way. Look at the firearms industry now. Every time you see a new gun, and I don't blame the firearms companies for this, they have to do it, I think. Every time I see a new gun, what I look for is how many parts that I already have sitting around in my room of gun parts can I also adapt to this? You have like the AR-15. If it doesn't take AR mags, good luck selling it, I feel like. Even bolt guns, some of the bolt guns even. I know I'm kind of making some big statements. Some people are probably going to be yelling at me because there's something better or whatever.
Comment below.
Feel free. But, it's like anytime somebody makes a new rifle, I feel like they have to say, well, it's got to take AR stocks because there's a gazillion AR stocks out there on the market. We want to make ours adaptable because everyone's used to being able to adapt everything.
Right.
And then they say, well, it's got to be able to use AR handguards because there's a million AR handguards out there and it's got to be able to adapt. And AR pistol grips and AR mags too. And why not even some of the AR parts that you get in lower parts kits like the trigger and, the magazine release and, and then we're going to do all that. And next thing you know, it's like, well, it's an AR. You know what I mean?
Right. And that probably speaks a little bit to the functionality of the platform. You kind of come full circle on it.
You do. And back when it came out, I mean, it was pretty revolutionary. You had the M16 that came out, I believe, after the M14. My firearms history is not as good as some of the others that have come in and joined us on the podcast. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But you can't deny the fact that when this did come out, whenever it came out, whatever it was trumping, so to speak, it was a pretty big deal. And now it's been around forever. And I just wondered to myself, will there be a new thing? How many of my parts will I be able to use on the new thing? But this is the start though. This was also like my diving board into really going gun crazy.
Well, because pretty good diving board, Jim. Because I mean, honestly, you look at this thing and I'd be like, oh, you could have built that last week. You know what I mean? That's a nice looking AR.
I really got it. Like I built a lot of ARs after this. The one thing that I found after building this was like I kind of went all out on this one. I put a lot of the quote Gucci parts. I didn't go like chrome or any like weird stuff. That's more just for looks. I tried to go all functionality, but kind of the nicer stuff. And now all my ARs, I'm running normal forged lowers. Like I don't have ambi anything. I run a regular charging handle. I run a regular I don't do much fancy anymore because I felt like either I'm not good enough or I'm not, enough operator enough to use all this fancy stuff, or just you kind of start looking around. You're like, I never use this ambi bolt release. I just don't.
Right.
Or a bunch of this stuff I just don't use. And then I just kind of reverted back to the old mil spec.
You got any ARs and 300 short mag?
No, but you do. I was going to I should have said, had you have not had a now AR-10, I could have said, some sly remark like, oh, Mark, this is an AR-15. Never seen one. But now I have an AR in 9mm. Now I even have a Robinson Armaments XCR, which is one of those things where you can use some of the AR parts on it, but it is a different firearm. I have an 18-inch AR. This is a 16-inch AR with a mid-length gas system. That was pretty big, too. I remember the mid-length gas system. People were talking about, like, oh, no, there's, you got to go, MIDI. It's the new thing. Nobody uses carbine-length gas systems anymore. And, but this thing's still always a good go-to.
It does beg the question, though, Jim, like you kind of alluded to. What is next? You look at, at one time the M1, which we actually did a podcast on, chatting about that. Like, that was, super trick.
Yeah.
And look at we are now, and have we plateaued?
Have we? What will some 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid in 30 years be idolizing? as like, that's the gun I got to get. That's the cool thing. That's what all the cool guys have.
Ray guns.
Ray guns. And there you have it at 10 minutes. We're ending on ray guns. What was your first AR like? Everybody comment on Instagram. Let us know, what parts did you have on it? Was it Gucci or was it just plain old mil spec?
Send us pics.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Dude, it ended on ray guns.
Nice. I like that.
I thought that was cool, man. This is a sweet AR. I mean, it is trick, man. Like, and again, you're like, when did you build this?
So I was 19, so that was 6 years ago.
Has anything changed?
No. Like, if you looked at this, you would say all of these parts from the manufacturers have been updated.
Fair enough.
But they all function exactly the same.
Right.
Like, Santan's lower, I think they like, made the cuts look a little different. But it literally all works the same. All this stuff I could still bolt off and bolt onto a brand new AR. It's just that it's not the latest edition.
You could do some fighting with that thing, Jim.
Oh yeah, she'll fight. Should have mentioned she shot out to 800 yards.
Seriously?
With the scope on it, yeah. Travis Vogel one time, I was cooking burgers on the grill, and he just was like, hey, bro, we were out at the farm. He's like, can I shoot your gun? I was like, sure. Next thing I know, he's running over, giggling like an idiot. And he's like, I just hit the steel at 800 yards like 10 times.
She's accurate.
Accurate.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.